Welcome to today's live stream on the Asanee 44 channel. In this episode, we're breaking down what to expect from a real Babalawo and Ile, how to recognize and align connection and make choices that protect your energy, your destiny, and your evolution. Remember, you're not just choosing a spiritual guide, you're choosing someone who will speak into your life, influence your journey, and either support or disrupt your growth. This choice carries Ashe. Make it wisely. If you're seeking deep Ifa teachings and authentic tools for transformation, you're in the right place. If you're watching live, feel free to drop your questions or reflections in the chat. And if you're catching the replay, type replay in the comments and let me know what stood out to you. So I'm going to go ahead and get back started with the live and what we're talking about today, which is choosing the right Babalawo, because it is such an important topic that I get questions about quite often. First, I want to start with why this even matters in the first place, right? Because we're talking about choosing somebody who is so very, very vital to our spiritual growth and development. And we want to make this choice very, very wisely. It is akin to choosing like a mate, a partner, a spouse, or something like that. It's really that important and that serious when we're talking about choosing the right spiritualist for our path, for our growth. All right. The energy of that person that you're dealing with absolutely becomes part of your energy. All right. So you're saying, okay, the sound is good now. Thank you for that. That energy becomes part of your energy. So you want to be wise, just the same way, like I said before, not even just a spouse, because that involves an even deeper level of intimacy, but even like the friends, the people in your close circle. It's said that you become like those who you spend the most time with. The 5 people that you're closest to, those are the people that you're going to be like most often. So the same way it's important for you to choose those individuals in your life, it is so important for you to choose the right spiritualist to connect with. So that way you can ensure that your journey is going to be more blessed, right? If you have somebody who's walking in truth, who is real, who is sincere, not perfect, because nobody is perfect. However, somebody who is trying their best to live according to the principles of Ifa, you will likely have a more blessed journey because of that. Because again, their energy impacts your energy for better or worse. Likewise, if you have somebody who is misusing their power, somebody who is scamming, who is doing all kinds of things that they shouldn't be doing, even if it's not for you. So they could be involved in corruption with other people. That negative energy can likewise impact your life. It can impact some of the things that you're going through. So you want to be very, very mindful of the person that you choose. All right. So before you decide to even align with somebody along your spiritual journey, always ask yourself, is this the energy that I want guiding my destiny, my path? The same way, again, that you're going to choose anybody who is going to be in close connection with you, because you will absolutely be influenced by that person's energy. And even more so when it comes to choosing a spiritualist, somebody who is engaged in your ritual work, somebody who is very, very vital to you fulfilling your blessing, because they're going to be doing your readings and the rituals and guiding you and counseling you, so forth and so on. Our Adissa is here right on time as we're talking about this very vital subject. Thank you for coming again. So you want to definitely be wise in that. Now, many of you all asked this question when I put it up on IG. What is the role of a Babalawo? What should this person be doing? And we are going to really, really dig into that. Let me say greetings to a few more people, and greetings to everybody's coming in on IG. I can't put you on the stage, but I can for you guys on YouTube. Greetings aside you as always. Greetings, Sarisha Boomy. Greetings, guys. Thank you all for coming. So this is important to know what this person should be doing for you, what they're responsible for doing for you. First and foremost, a Babalawo. We're talking about a Babalawo or Iyanifa here. So I'm saying Babalawo. Most of the time, you'll hear me say owl, which basically incorporates the collective usage of the priest and the priestess terminology. But a Babalawo is a male Ifa priest, which means that this person is connected with the energy or the power of Orunmila, which is the Orisha of wisdom. It is the Orisha that the whole tradition is, kind of focused around, because that's where that vital knowledge came from. Likewise, an Iyanifa is a female Ifa priestess, so she would likewise be connected to their energy of Orunmila. We do have Olorishas, right, in the tradition, and some of you all may have an Olorisha. Sorry, guys, I'm trying to close something up here. Some of you all may have an Olorisha, and this will be somebody who is directly connected to a specific Orisha. So Orunmila is an Orisha, right? But Orunmila rather is different than other Orishas in that manner, right? So when we're talking about other Orisha, we're referring to the ones that people commonly know of, like Ogun, Oshun, Oya, etc. And you may be connected with one of those individuals. So the conversation is still very vital, regardless of who you are choosing. However, I'm using the title, Owl, Babalawo, Iyanifa throughout this live stream just to give clarity there. And I'm, talking about their role, especially in particular when it comes to the notion of divination, because Ifa divination is a little bit different than Olorisha divination. So I'm not going to get into those aspects of it, but the foundation will be the same regardless. So when we're talking about a Babalawo, as I said before, this individual performs Ifa divination. They use the Akim, the Opele, and they interpret that through the Holy Odu in a responsible manner. The reason why I'm mentioning this here is because a Babalawo, an owl, does not do intuitive reading. So sometimes people come with that expectation, especially coming from a westernized perspective, looking at tarot readings and different types of psychic readings, intuitive readings, etc. However, that is not what an owl does. They use a coded system that is going to generate an Odu, and through that Odu, they interpret it and they explain that to you. I've talked about that notion in previous videos. I think I have maybe about 2 or 3 videos on the YouTube channel where I go more in depth into that. So I do encourage you all to watch that video if you haven't yet, to get a deeper understanding of how that works. But I wanted to explain it here because it's very, very, very vital when it comes to choosing the right person to do your ritual work, okay? After they do the reading, that person is also going to be responsible for prescribing you those remedies that came from that reading, performing the sacrifices. That's the Ebo that's listed there. They are going to do that ritual work for you in most instances, especially if you're brand new to the tradition. They conduct initiation ceremonies for Ifa. Again, so we're talking about a Babalawo and not an Olorisha here. So an Olorisha is going to do initiations for whatever Orishas that they work with, okay? And they are also going to provide you with ongoing guidance and knowledge based on the Odu. So now it's very, very important for you to get that part too, because this is somebody that you're going to be in close connection with. If you're coming from like a Christian background or something like that, you may not be used to being really, really close with your preacher or pastor or whomever was overseeing that particular church. Some people may be, but others may not be. They just may go to church and then just keep on moving, and they're used to getting their information from other people. Maybe they read books, maybe they watch videos or something like that online, YouTube, or back in the day, it used to be TVN, things like that, where they're getting additional information. And definitely in E5, people get information from various sources. There's nothing wrong with that. However, when it comes to spiritual counsel, you should be going for the most part to your owl for that type of deep level personal spiritual counsel. That's the person that should be doing those things for you. So I have a question here. Is an ebo done after every reading? After every Ifa divination, you should receive an ebo. Like whenever you get the reading, you should be told this is what XYZ spirits request during this time in order to help you out with your situation. It should be performed, right? But that's going to be between you and the owl because it's your choice whether to move forward with doing the ebo or not. It is not automatically performed in like the traditional sense just because they don't know what's going to come out itself for like you're just going to feed Iyami or something like that. But still, if they're generating an Odu, they won't know what comes out beforehand. And I say that is because some people do like they charge beforehand for the reading and the ebo, and that is not according to traditional standards. In the traditional way of doing a reading, they do the reading, they generate the Odu. The Odu will tell you what's going on in your situation, and it will also prescribe certain ebo, maybe even talk about a koshe, taboos, different things that's related to what you need to do to improve your situation. So I hope that clarified it for you. It's very important that the owl that you're working with is walking in Igwa Pele. It should not be somebody just willing to do any and everything. Okay. They are trained in every aspect of the tradition. The same ritual work that they can do to help you come into balance, they can also do ritual work to bring curses and spells and negative things against people. Every owl has has that knowledge, has that technology available to them. Should they be using it in that way? No. You don't want them using it in that way because when they do, that person is bringing negative energy first and foremost to them, even if they're doing work for somebody else. So again, you don't want to be connected with that if you are trying to truly walk the path of Ifa. Now, if you're not, if you're coming to this tradition for something else, you go ahead, you do what you want to do. But you do still have to be mindful, even with that, understanding that you can fall into some negativity, some ill things. Sorry, guys, got an airplane going by, so I hope you can still hear me. Understand too that in owls, they should be working in collaboration with other priests, right? So they're going to be doing things related to the community as a whole because the Ifa tradition is a communally based tradition. It is about collectivism, working together to make a salient society. Okay. And again, I say this because sometimes I do get questions from people about different dynamics when it comes related to their readings in particular that they're asking me, and they shouldn't be asking me. They should definitely be going back to the owl who gave that reading to them, right? But they don't. And I'm like, well, you need to ask your owl this. And they're like, well, they said that they don't know, they may be new, whatever it may be. It's not that an owl is going to know everything necessarily. However, again, if they're working within a community with other people, that owl should go back to their community, whoever trained them or whoever they're working around, and ask those individuals those questions if they don't have the answer for you. You should not be relegated to going to somebody else to ask a question about a reading in particular that they perform for you. It's a little bit different when you have just like general or basic questions about the tradition as a whole. Yes, they should be able to answer it for you. However, I do understand when there are circumstances where they can't just sit with you and answer those types of questions. But if it's related to your reading, they should definitely be collaborating with other people when necessary. Okay. Sometimes you will have owls who perform the rituals, the ebo themselves. This is not going to be common, especially in Yoruba land when you're dealing with somebody who is really busy. Oftentimes, they're working with people who can assist them in this task of performing rituals. They still may be present, but usually they'll get other people on deck, especially if they have a lot of work to do. Because I was asked this question as well, like, is it okay? Is it cool for my awo to be getting somebody else to do my ebo? And it absolutely is, as long as that person is trained in that process. And I'm assuming that they probably wouldn't have somebody else doing that type of work for you if that person doesn't know what they're doing, right? So normally they're going to work that out properly on their end. Okay, they can also work remotely. A lot of people ask that, like, can they do spiritual work remotely? Can they do ebo remotely? Absolutely, guys. I don't know what this thing is. Some people have told me before, like, they've been told that by no means should they get an online reading or should they do any ebo work online, etc. The same way that somebody can do negative or evil work against you without you being present, the same notion, the same principle goes with positive work, right? You don't have to be in somebody's presence in order for somebody to work a spell or magic against you, right? Nobody's going to call you in and say, come and stand right here so we can do this negative or evil work on you. No, most of the time you don't know anything about the fact that it's going on. But does it impact your life? Absolutely. The same thing can happen with the work being done remotely, with one caveat, okay? Initiation, as I say all the time, cannot be done remotely. There are certain things you must be present for. Your physical presence is demanded when it comes to the initiation process. So that's one of the few things. There are some special ceremonies that you may have to be present for too. But in general, your ebo, your divination can always be done remotely. But those types of things are just really, really common. You can do it easily without the person being present. Okay, so now we're going to transition to actually working with a Babalawo. So before you begin this process, the thing I always tell people in the diaspora in particular is to know what they are practicing. Is that our practicing Isheshe, which is the traditional way out of Nigeria, or are they practicing something else like Lukumi, Santeria, etc.? It's not that one is good or bad, right? Or even so better than the other. It really just depends on you. However, what they are practicing will definitely impact your journey. It'll impact what you learn, how you learn, right? Things of that nature. So you want to keep those dynamics in mind. And you want to understand those dynamics as well so that you don't start to mix up things and get yourself confused, because it's very easy to get confused, especially in today's world, because most of the information that you just see, especially like on websites and things like that, even so on YouTube, I find that most of that is from the Lukumi tradition or Santeria or something like that. Facebook, on the other hand, you will have a lot of owls there who teach the tradition and put up posts and things like that, who are out of Nigeria. I find that most of the people in Nigeria tend to operate on Facebook. And of course, this could change at any given time. And it's not to say that there are no owls from Nigeria on YouTube or anything like that. That's just what I've seen in my experience. That's important, again, because you're going to be learning different things when it comes to the ways of the traditions. They are not the exact same thing, though foundationally they have that same dynamic, that underlying core, as far as the orishas and kind of what you do, the ritual work, etc. As far as why you do it, I should say. But the ritual work can actually look different in these different traditions, and the teachings can be tremendously different. So just be mindful of that whenever you are choosing a practice. If you want to work with somebody from Nigeria, I should say rather from Isheshe, you want to ask those questions to see what they are actually dealing with, okay? It is perfectly fine and normal for a Babalawo to charge for their time, energy, efforts, materials. Honestly, if they're not charging you, then you should consider that something is wrong in that situation, right? So I've got this question, which was strange to me. Should an owl be charging for their work? Yes, they should, because number one, if they don't, they probably would not be able to be an owl full time, right? And some of them are, some do part time work, but in order to sustain themselves, they cannot do work for free, all right? And that's the divination piece in and of itself. When it comes to materials, you definitely should never expect for somebody else to go out and pay for your materials. That in and of itself is part of the sacrifice that you're giving. You're sacrificing your money, which is a form of energy, in order to get the work that you need to get done for you. Like, where on earth do you see somebody else paying for those types of things for you? I do understand this, so I'm not saying this in a condescending way. I understand the concerns that you guys may have about paying, because you, especially somebody coming from a Christian dynamic where salvation is free, which is a whole nother scenario that's not true either. But that's what you're taught, right? Salvation is free. You don't have to do anything. You just accept Jesus and everything is good. Well, that's not, but the premise, first of all, that the tradition is based off of. It's never been based off of that. That's New Age stuff, right? Even though, they say it's tradition, that is not true, okay? And again, you are actually paying for things that is going towards your health, your spiritual health. Now, when it comes to paying to be part of an ELA, which I'm going to get into later on, that's a little bit different. So that can be more comparable to the church scenario. But when you go to church, you're listening to somebody, you get the message, you get the word, so to speak, and you go home, right? That's it. But when it comes to these traditions, you're paying somebody to do spiritual work for you. You have to pay for, if nothing else, those materials. And if that person is wise, they're going to absolutely charge you for their services if they want to continuously be able to provide them to you, because they won't otherwise if they just operate for free. A Babalawo also has the right to decline requests that violate their moral compass, okay? So they don't have to do everything that you ask them to do. Going back to what I was saying earlier about the ethics of it, them doing work, that is left-handed pretty much. They can do it if they decide to do it. Some of them do it. Absolutely. I'm not going to sit here and tell you all that people don't do that, because they absolutely do. However, the ones who choose not to do so, they have the right to refuse to do so for you. So, keep that in mind. Again, it's about what you're looking for. I said this before, so whenever an owl gets something that's outside of their realm, even beyond a question. So sometimes there are situations where you require a very, very special ceremony or ritual to be performed, especially if it's associated with a specific Olorisha. We see this a lot when it comes to dealing with Igby. For instance, your owl may have to consult with another, with an Olorisha or something like that, in order to get that ritual work performed for you. So that's very, very common in the tradition, and it's okay. Again, the same way it's okay for them to get somebody else to help them out with your rituals, with your ebo and sacrifices and things like that. Now, so you all asked about this. Should I be working with more than one owl? Is that okay, brother? It's completely up to you, and it's okay. But I say, do so with respect in mind, understanding that you could cause yourself some problems if the two people don't know about each other, or they don't know about the different work that they're giving you. So I talked about this before in the crochet episode. If you're working with two different people and one is giving you a crochet for one thing and another is giving you a crochet for another thing, and they don't know about these things, only you know that, and you haven't communicated that, you could be dealing with some contraindications, which means that the work may not be suitable to be done together, right? And if you're working with two different people and you're not communicating that, you can definitely cause yourself some problems, some issues when it comes to those notions. I do understand why people would choose to work with two different people. A lot of it has to do with the educational component, as some of you all, told me that, there are situations where one person may be doing the work for you. This may be the person that you started out with. They're doing excellent work for you. However, they're not educating you, or you can't get that deeper level guidance that you desire to get from them. So then you start to work with someone else. And again, that's okay, but just be mindful when you're combining different words and rituals and things like that. Usually, you're not going to have to repeat ritual work. I've heard people say before that they'll go and get a reading from one, and then they'll get it verified by another to make sure that that's the ritual work that they should be doing. Now, you can get yourself into some, sticky situations if you're talking about that with both of them, because then it's like, do you not trust me? Things of that nature. I can understand it more so maybe from the beginning. Like if you're just trying to figure it out, well, this one told me this, and so let me check with somebody else just to make sure that it's on point or what have you. But long term, that's probably not going to be the most sustainable model for you. So now I'm going to get briefly into the expectations you should have with Ifa consultation, because that is going to be the primary thing that you're going to be dealing with your owl with on a regular basis. And I do want to clarify here, because it was asked like recently about what's the difference between the consultation and Ifa divination. So divination, excuse me, is the reading itself, right? A consultation is the part that comes after that, when you're being informed about what happened during the reading, and then you get to ask more questions. It just goes deeper into what happened during that reading process. There's kind of that back and forth energy that you guys exchange when it comes to doing that divination. The divination is just the information that came out of your reading specifically. Okay. Johnny, greetings to you. Likewise, thank you for coming. Alrighty, so now when it comes to the consultation aspects of it, so a responsible owl, they're going to explain that Odu to you that came out clearly. Hopefully they break it down. Everybody is different, so they may not be as thorough and detailed as some other people are, but they could be. It just depends on the person that you're working with. And then they're going to offer you some practical, life-relevant interpretations for you when it comes to that Odu. That's what they should be doing. If you're working with somebody who is not giving you the interpretation of that Odu fully, they're not explaining it to you fully, first, definitely ask them for that if you need more clarity. If they don't give it to you, right, I'm going to suggest that you probably work with somebody else, because it's not a good idea to just get a reading from one person and then jump to another person and say, hey, can you explain this Odu to me? Because the Odu is the Odu, yes, but there are certain things that are going to apply to you specifically from their reading. If they pull out taboos from their reading, because I've had people ask me that too, like, can you explain me what taboos come from this particular Odu? And I don't do that kind of thing. I don't just explain it because it takes a lot of work. But even if I were to do so, knowing the taboos that came from a specific Odu may not be applicable to you. So that's not something that is going to benefit you in the long run if you're not getting the food that you need from the person who gave that to you. So that's the meat, that's the information. Like, they should be telling you, this is the taboo. My throat. Excuse me, guys. They should be giving you that information, the meat of what that reading came with, right? If it came with taboos, because that's another thing. All Odu do not come with taboos. So keep that in mind. It's not like every time you get an Ifa reading, you are going to get taboos associated with that. It may come with warnings. It may not come with either. But again, you should go to the person who gave it to you in order to get the deeper level meaning of it, okay? Consultations are also going to give you enough insight, context, actionable steps that you need to take to go along with that do, usually you're going to get it in different forms. So it really depends on how that person does their readings. If you're face to face, you'll get that information right then, and you can flesh it out, ask the questions, so forth. Then sometimes it'll be written, sometimes it might just be a recorded feedback. If you have a preference, you should definitely ask that person beforehand how they deliver it. Doesn't mean that they're going to change their delivery format for you, but if you do have a preference, like I prefer to hear it, you probably want to work with somebody who is going to provide you with that aspect of it. You should be allowed to ask questions, as I said before. If it's like an online reading or something like that, usually you'll have the opportunity to put your questions in, the fields that are available whenever you go to purchase the reading. However, if you're doing it face to face, you're going to be asking those questions during the reading itself. And then also you should be able to ask follow-up questions about your reading after the reading. Okay. If you continuously have questions. In some cases, you may even have questions that require a little bit deeper investigation, where the owl may have to pull out the apele and, ask some clarifying questions for you. And they may be able to do that along with the reading. It really depends on how they operate. So everybody doesn't operate the same. They may say, you know what, you got to pay extra because you got these extra questions. Some people may say, okay, I'll take these few questions because they're in alignment with what we just did pertaining to the reading. That you got to figure out with the person that you're working with. So a trustworthy owl is never going to pressure you to do any type of ritual word initiations or make urgent decisions in any regards, regardless of what came out in your reading. Because yes, it can come out in a reading that death is imminent. Okay, it comes out for different people. It's come out for me in readings before. However, it should be a decision that you're going to make to say, okay, I'm going to do this ebo in order to prevent me from experiencing physical death or a family member from experiencing physical death. But not somebody saying, you must do this right now in order to, prevent this, so forth and so on. They're responsible for telling you what came out in the reading, regardless of what came out in the reading, whether it's good or whether it's not so good. But they are not responsible for forcing you or compelling you to do ritual work thereafter. That decision should always be up to you, right? You want to make sure that your personal information is going to be handled confidentially. A lot of times they'll have this, if you're buying it off like a website or something like that, that information should be provided there. If it's not, you can ask them about it. In Yoruba land, it is definitely common for people to get readings in an open space, in a very public space, in a temple, where there are other people who could potentially hear the outcome of what's going on. If somebody wants a private reading, they can absolutely request that and get that done when they're in Yoruba land. But it's very common for this to be done in a communal aspect. However, in the diaspora, it is so much more common for it to be done on an individual one-to-one basis. Hopefully, they're not sharing their information with other people. Hopefully, they're not putting your ritual work out on, videos and things like that, because unfortunately, that does happen sometimes, where you will see people having like ritual work being performed, and they put it a lot of times on Facebook. I see this where they're showing, things that they've done for clients. Understand, like in Yoruba land, it's not a big thing, as I said before. But if you do have privacy concerns, that's something that you do want to discuss with your owl. Like, don't put my ritual work on your Facebook page or something like that. Me, I'm much more private, so that's not what I prefer, but you may be okay with it, right? Either way it goes, you definitely want to have that conversation with your owl if that's a concern. I should say, rather, if that's a concern, you definitely want to have that conversation with your owl. Especially if you see them doing things like that. So like if they have a Facebook page, go on there and see if they have a lot of ebo being performed, put out there, and you want to make sure that they don't do this with yours, just have that conversation with them, okay? Some things to consider when choosing your hour. So you guys on YouTube did a survey, and again, thanks always for participating in those. So the question was like, what are some of the priorities that you have when choosing an hour? And this is the results of the survey. So about 71% of you guys said the training in their lineage. Some of you all said, none of you all rather said accessibility was a concern, meaning location and things like that. Pricing or cost transparency, about 7%, and then referrals or their reputation was about 21%. And then some people even add in the comments, well, hey, I also look at whether my spirit aligns with them. I couldn't add that option. It was originally an option for me, but I had to pull one back because YouTube only allows 4 options. So we came with those 4. So I would definitely say that this should be a priority here is energy alignment. Whenever you're deciding who to choose, who to work with, does your Ori feel okay? Your Ori being your higher self, your inner head, all right? Are you at peace around this person? Do you feel anxious? Is something telling you that something's not quite right with that individual? Listen to that, guys. Please listen to that before it's too late or before a big mistake is made in that process. All right. I know I had to, go through that myself. I was feeling that with somebody that I was working with prior to working with Awo Adissa, who is my current Awo. And it was just like, I'm about to, transition from this because this isn't feeling right. It's not making sense to me, some of the things that this person is doing. So I did leave, and fortunately I didn't have any negativity that came from that other than losing some money. But besides that, it wasn't anything like spiritually or negatively impacting me in that way. Training lineage should definitely be an important factor. I'm going to lean more so on training here because they should definitely know what they're doing. Lineage is important. However, it won't be something that most people will be able to truly assess, right? So if somebody's like, this is my lineage, this is my background. If you don't know the person or you don't know anything about Ifa at that stage, like that's not going to make much difference to you. But their training is going to be paramount because no matter how, even if your spirit feels good with them, if they don't know what they're doing, because your spirit might just feel good because they're a good person and they have good energy. But if they don't know what they're doing, that's going to definitely impact your journey. And that's not what you want, right? Understanding, as I said before, this tradition is not about intuition, right? I just feel, I just know, or I just see. Nobody's looking through a crystal ball and just saying, this is what's coming up. No, they're doing divination that's based on a very codified system. When they do that, divination is going to tell them certain things that need to go on. They're going to get that information and then use it to provide you with the prescriptions and the remedies that you need in your work. You want that person to be trained. You want them to be accurate. You definitely don't want somebody fresh out of initiation or fresh out of, definitely not fresh out of initiation because they're not even considered an owl or an Iyanifa at that point. But even somebody like just fresh out of training to be an owl. You want somebody who has had training, long-term training, and has worked with somebody else for a prolonged period of time doing your work, or at least that they're working side by side somebody else. So it could be that they're new, but at least that they have somebody else to verify with, to check for them over the long haul, because you want this done right. This is not something to play with at all. Referrals and their reputation should definitely be important to you to a certain degree, but it should never override your own discernment, right? Because even if somebody is good, they have a good reputation, they may not always be for you. Just because somebody is well trained and they know what they're doing, etc., you may just not mesh with them on a deeper level, and that's okay, right? You may have to go to somebody else. There's somebody out there for everyone. So sometimes you have to take your time and figure out who that is for you. All right. Pricing transparency should be very important. You should never feel manipulated. It shouldn't be like everything is hidden, like you get this price and then somebody else gets another price, so forth and so on. If you get a price from somebody, even if it's not posted publicly, they shouldn't be telling you, oh, don't tell anybody else that I gave you this particular price for this particular thing. That's shady business for sure. And the cost should be upfront. They tell you this is how much it costs. You pay them for it. That should be enough to cover whatever that needs to be done. They really shouldn't be coming back to you afterwards saying, well, it really cost this much, or I had to get this and then it cost this extra. I need you to pay more money. No, you should be given a price and you pay that price and it should cover whatever fees are there. Okay. Johnny, you're saying, I just seen a video yesterday on a reputable owl page. His name is Joseph. YouTube had someone on that got crowned Olokun direct. What's your thoughts on that? So I don't know a lot about Lukumi and their crowning process. Now, if you're saying that, like he's presenting him as a reputable owl, I can't answer that question because I don't know the person, right? If they're doing, I guess maybe your question is, are they like straightforward doing ritual work or divination or what have you for other people right after being crowned? I think the process actually is a little bit different in Lukumi, because a lot of times I hear people in Lukumi, when they get initiated, they're considered to be priests and priestesses automatically without any formal training. That's what I've seen and heard before. If I'm wrong on that, some of you people, especially from IG, I know a lot of you guys practice the Lukumi tradition. If I'm wrong on that, let me know. But I have seen that before. So with that, I would definitely say exercise caution, because that is a thing in Lukumi for people to just, they're priests and priestesses right after they finish with initiation with no real training in how to do pretty much anything at that point. So my thoughts on it is, I personally do not want somebody fresh out of training on their own doing my work. Okay. If they are doing like an apprenticeship where they're working side by side with somebody else, maybe, right? Because I definitely believe in giving people a chance, but they themselves should want to know what they're doing before they just, jump off and start going work for somebody else. That's the way I feel about it personally. Accessibility. So convenience is definitely helpful, but that's going to be very difficult in some instances. And understanding that, even Ifa principles teach that you do not, everything that you want, everything that, is right for you is not always going to be easily reachable. You're asking what are the beads you have on? These are my egg bead, right? I wear these most of the time, especially when I'm out. I don't always wear them on film, but I wear these most of the time. But they're egg bead beads. These egg bead are most of the time going to be really, really colorful because they represent that notion of a group dynamic, and that's your society in heaven. Places to find an owl. So we're going to get with that part. First and foremost, I always say consult with your aura, your ancestors. Ask them to lead you to the right person. All right. That doesn't mean that you're not going to have to do the legwork. And I'm going to talk about that shortly, because I've heard people say too that you're not supposed to go out and find your owl. Their person is supposed to come to you. I don't know where it comes from. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me to just depend on that. Like, if you're sick, right, are you going to depend on the doctor just coming to you? Because it's kind of the same notion there, right? Greetings, Lance. Appreciate you as always. Happy that you were able to make it today. So, that's my thoughts on that. just because you pray and ask your Ori, your ancestors, to show you the direction, doesn't mean that you just sit back and the person is just going to, fall in your lap, or you're going to just go to the store and you're going to meet them. It could happen that way. I'm not saying that it won't or it can't, but that's not going to be the case for everyone. Okay. Even I was saying, talked about my personal experience here with meeting our Odysseus. So I did pray once I was dealing with the situation, and I literally told my ancestors, like, I'm not going to be doing this anymore if I can't find the right person, because I don't want to keep going through this process, this journey, and, having this headache or what have you. And so, not too long, I don't know if it was a few days or a few weeks, it was very, very close to that time frame that I was later on Facebook, saw some posts. I don't even think we were connected, but I saw like a post he did or something like that, and it just drew my attention. And I just, was like really considering working with him. And he doesn't even post that much. I don't think he has his Facebook up anymore. But do you? Are you there? I will just. Do you have a Facebook up? So then I just was like drawn, like I was saying, I was just drawn to that energy. And then I just reached out to him, but I didn't even reach out like from the door about, being an owl or something like that for me. I was asking other questions about the tradition, because as I talked to you guys about before, it's very, very important for me to get deeper level meaning. So I needed to make sure that whoever I was working with would be able to have those deeper level conversations with me. And he obliged me, he answered my questions. I was like, okay, it seems pretty cool. And so then we connected deeper after that, and we just started to have the conversations. And then I went and started doing ritual work with him, with divination first, and then, ritual work and working with him on a consistent basis. He's saying, yes, he still has his Facebook page. So thank you for that. Alafia Dante. Greetings, greetings, greetings for everybody who is showing up, even you guys on Instagram. I don't forget you. I just can't bring you on stage when you say something to me. But that was my journey into where I am now. Have been very pleased and satisfied since. So, and even after that, I did much prayers and said, make sure if this person is not for me, I want you to remove them from me, because I just don't have time for the mistakes and the problems, and definitely not losing money, because practicing Ifa is not cheap. But beyond that, because it's not even just about the price for me. Like, I'm cool to pay money for something that is going to benefit me, because you're going to sacrifice either way it goes. But it was more so about, sacrificing through the mechanism of losing money and not benefiting from it. I didn't enjoy that whatsoever. And just not having somebody to answer my questions, because that was, like I said before, very important to me. And just, I needed that. Everybody has whatever they need, but for me, that was a thing. So that's why I did even go into it from a space of, well, let me ask questions. Let me see how this person will deal with that aspect of what I need, beyond just reading, beyond just doing elbow for me. I need to know if I could talk to somebody, because I have a million questions, and he is so patient, because I ask question after question after question, even to this day, because I just love to know the deeper meaning of things. I guess that's the Sagittarius energy in me, but I like to know, like, exactly what's going on. Beyond this, you can definitely get referrals from somebody if you know somebody who is practicing the tradition, because they may be able to provide you with somebody that they work with, or somebody that they know that they feel like would be a good fit for you, or what have you. Obviously, everybody doesn't have that. So there are things that other things that you can do. I'll get into in a second. So you're asking, what does it mean to have Ori venerated and receiving Ori icon? So that will, when you're saying venerating Ori, that's just paying homage to Ori. That can be done in a multitude of ways when it comes to the tradition. When you're venerating or honoring Ori, you're going to do ritual work, okay, that Ori asked for. It may be fish is very common, but it could be other sacrifices that are given to your Ori in order to uplift your Ori, right? An Ori icon is going to be the house, right? That Ori comes in, where you're going to be feeding that icon whatever it takes on a regular basis through the icon that you have personally with you. And even when you have your Ori icon, you're still going to be doing other ritual work towards Ori. If you could possibly be feeding it yourself with like the sacrifices. That's once you're initiating, you really know what you're doing though. So even when you have your Ori icon, you'll be feeding that individually on your own so that your Ori is much closer to you. And then you'll still be getting like the ritual, the elbow done through the owl. I hope that's what I hope I answered your question. I hope that's what you were asking me about. Now, so for those of you all who don't know somebody who is practicing, or maybe you do know somebody who is practicing, you don't want to work with their person for whatever reason, you can definitely, find people online. There's so many people online. Facebook is really good if you're looking for somebody practicing Isheshe out of Nigeria. As I said before, there are so many owls on Facebook. That's the thing. Nigerians love Facebook. Okay. YouTube, of course, you can find it there as well. YouTube, I like because of, well, actually both. I won't even just say it's just YouTube. So really, anybody who's providing deeper level education, I would encourage you to go that route more so than just somebody saying, "Oh, I offer Ifa divination," right? Look at people who are posting information about the tradition on their pages, wherever they're showing up, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, etc. Look for people who are talking about, the tradition, because when you do that, educationally, I should say, when you do that, you're more likely to find somebody who can provide you with that deeper level of education, because that's a major concern that people do have. They're saying, well, I got somebody doing the ritual work, they're good, but I need the educational piece. So if you start from that foundation with somebody who's already providing you with the education, then you have a stronger expectation, at least, that this person is going to be able to provide you with that as you move forward. You're saying, I did. You're very welcome, Daniel. So attending ATR conferences as well, events, cultural festivals, etc., you're likely to find somebody who works in the tradition, an hour or something like that, who can service your needs really, really well. I won't necessarily say start with going to like maybe an Ifa festival or event. You can if you want to, if you know about it, but if you have no idea about the tradition, that's probably just going to be, more difficult for you to find somebody there. But just in general, there are so many conferences and places where people meet and talk about African spirituality as a whole. All right. And so, especially if you get into some of those comedic spaces or what have you, you're probably going to be able to find somebody who knows somebody, etc., that practices Ifa. Because what I find is a lot of times when you see those type of conscious communities, you're going to find people from all different walks of African spirituality there. Okay, so that's another great place to look. Um, Spiritual shops, botanica. So if you go to like a spiritual shop or botanica in your area, you may be able to find people posted on bulletin boards or cards or things like that with information about different owls. Or you can even speak directly to somebody at the spiritual store and ask them, do they know somebody? Because they likely do. So these are just some of the places that I recommend. Of course, there's so many other places that you can meet someone. Again, you start with Ori, your ancestors, and in doing so, they will lead you to the right place. All right. So I'm going to now cover elays, because this part comes after you found the right owl and you decided, yes, this is who I want to stick with. Owl being Babalawo or Iyanifa. This is who I want to stick with. So now I'm going to go deeper with them and join their elay, their spiritual house, their temple. Okay, this is the last section that I'm going to cover here, guys. So if you do have any questions, feel free to go ahead and ask them, and we're going to cover them as we go along. All right, so an Elay, this is going to be that spiritual community that you're going to work within. It's going to be generally led by a priest or a priestess. It may be the one that you work with, but it could be a different priest or priestess if they're working in a house that has multiple layers of individuals within it. They're going to offer you deeper level guidance. This is your spiritual family, your spiritual community that you're going to work with. So usually you're going to have more of a structure there and collective learning experiences, etc. Okay. So whenever you join an Elay, you should definitely expect to have a higher level of mentorship from the people within the Elay, definitely the priests, the priestesses, elders, etc. within that community. Communal rituals often take place. So it may be readings that are done for the entire temple, the entire house, and not just you individually. Definitely going to be some shared responsibilities when it comes to cleaning up the Elay and bringing things forward that need to happen in order for that Elay to grow and to prosper and progress, etc. Each Elay is going to have their own set of guidelines as far as what it takes to join them. Sometimes it may just be having an established client connection. So maybe you have to have at least done like 4 readings in Evo or what have you, 3 or 4, I should say, with that particular Elay in order to become a formal member. Sometimes it may require you to procure an Olorisha pot with them. That's actually the requirement for working with our Elay. If you get any type of Olorisha pot from us, an icon or what have you, you automatically become a member of our Elay, and you get those deeper level benefits that come with it. Initiation may be the requirement for some Elays, so you may have to initiate through them. And then some Elays, which this part is very, very common in the diaspora, is paying the membership fees. All right. And a lot of people have complained about this part. It was really outputting to me, I will say, at first when I started the tradition, and because I actually started dealing with it in America. I knew I wasn't going to stay in that space, but joining an Elay that required that membership fees was like, what is this, especially coming from a Christian dynamic. I understand it. I understood it then. But for me personally, because I was asked this question a while back on Instagram, somebody was like, how do I feel about paying, people charging for being a member of an Elay? It really depends on you and what you're getting from it. Depends on that Elay and you, what you're getting from it, what type of experience that you're looking for, right? So if you're paying membership fees and you're getting extra things from that, I don't see anything wrong with it. So if that looks like, okay, you're paying that fee, but your hour is answering yes or no questions for you for free. You're getting deep level teachings through that Elay. You can get counsel and guidance whenever you need it from their Elay, etc. It's okay, right? For me personally, it's completely up to you. However, if you're just paying money, a membership fee, and you're not getting anything extra from it, I don't see the purpose in it personally, right? We don't charge a membership fee because I feel like we both feel like just this is something that is part of the process. You're paying money to do your ritual work, which can really, really get expensive. So, why charge an extra fee for it? I'm not saying anybody else is wrong or even right when I say this. I'm saying this is how I feel about it. If you're paying a membership fee and you're satisfied with the service that you're receiving, continue to do so, right? Because it's not necessarily that they're wrong for charging you that, especially depending on the quality of information that you are getting from it. I actually, going back to my experience, I started with a woman in America, and I chose to do so knowing that that was not going to be where I stayed because I originally wanted to work with somebody from Nigeria. I started in America because I just wanted to see what it looked like in person. So I did choose for their first month to be a member of the Elay just to see what it was about. And I didn't like the experience. I wasn't planning on staying anyway, but I didn't like the experience that I had because when I asked questions, so I, would text the woman and ask her, the Iyanifa, and ask her what, different questions, just basic questions or whatever I had. She either didn't answer or it took her forever to answer my question. And I'm like, what am I paying money for? Yes, they had like these weekly meetings or what have you. And that's the main reason I joined it, because I thought it was going to be deeply educational for me. But it was more so a bunch of people just discussing their own experiences with the tradition, which is not, irrelevant whatsoever. It's just not what I was looking for. I wanted deep level teachings about Ifa. I wanted to understand the tradition. I didn't really want to just come in there just to know, what somebody else was experiencing. I could go on YouTube and get that, right? So that was my experience. Again, it's not wrong. It just all depends on what you are looking for specifically. Alafia, greetings to everybody who is showing up. So yeah, that's where I come from with it. Aside from that membership fee, you may be asked for financial contributions or donations, etc. Whenever this happens, it should be explained clearly. So sometimes when they're fixing up like the temple or something like that, the physical building, they may ask for donations to help out with that process. Elay members are expected to give during those times. And even going back to the notion of that membership fee situation that I was just talking about, that's a thing in the diaspora, guys, that's like not part of Isheshe in Nigeria, where people are required to pay the membership fees. However, in Nigeria, it is absolutely a thing for people to give financial contributions, donations, etc. to their Ile, either just out of their own heart whenever they decide to do so, or when it is a special situation. So maybe it's an event, a festival, or something like that, or like I said, like they're building a temple or repairing the temple, etc. That is a thing, right? So you kind of have to figure out where you stand in that, and you should. I feel like it should always be done from the heart, even when it comes to being asked for donations or what have you. Like we're fixing up the temple or we're building a new temple. If you feel like you want to do it, you do it. If you don't, you don't. It's up to you. Now, you can sometimes belong to more than one Ile, as I was talking about before, working with two different owls. But again, you want to respect the customs of each house. You want to not confuse your own self or get your own self out of balance by trying to deal with two different Iles, similar to like trying to work with two different churches. It can cause confusion, especially when one is teaching something that, their foundation can be really different from another's. All right. The information, the basics are going to be the same for sure, but the way they do things can be different. So that's the same notion of being like in two different churches. The way things are done can be different. So, just be mindful of that if you choose to work with two different houses or what have you. Living nearby isn't required. So lots of Elays, especially in today's world, operate virtually and they have well-structured online communities. Excuse me. Even when I was working with the first Elay I was telling you guys about, when I did pay the membership fee, even though, they were in a local area, they still did everything virtually because there were members from all over the world, really. So everybody could have access to it. They would actually do like Zoom meetings or something, whatever platform it was. I think it was Zoom, but you get my point. They were using a platform like that so that everybody could come in and have those types of conversations. There was a physical location that you could go to as well, like I said, but it wasn't where people met on a regular basis. Okay, so whenever you're dealing with an Elay, it should be promoting integrity, humility, transparency, collective elevation, not bickering, arguing, manipulation, control, not a bunch of drama. Because just like with choosing the owl, if you choose a house with a bunch of negative energy, a lot of infighting, backbiting, etc., that's the energy that you're going to be walking around your life with. So, you figure that part out. To me, it was the same dynamic in the church. I used to see that, a lot of drama or what have you. And if I saw a church with drama, I'm leaving, because that's not where I want to be fed. It's not, I don't want that contaminating me. I deal with any spiritual system to get balance. That's my purpose for it. So you got to figure out what your purpose is and walk accordingly, right? You can leave an elay respectfully, definitely, if it doesn't align with you, with your growth, with your needs, okay? Especially when it conflicts with your growth or your needs, but try to do so respectfully whenever you can. Right, I did do a video about like leaving in Iyanifa or an owl, etc. before, and I talked about some things that you should consider during that process. So definitely check that out if you want more information related to how to respectfully exit out of a relationship with an owl or a house or something like that. All right. So guys, remember, you are not just choosing an owl or an elay when you take this journey. You're actually choosing how you grow, how you heal, how you fulfill your destiny. So make sure to make it count. That's all I have as far as this goes. Next week, we are going to be dealing with practicing Ifa with special needs. This was a request that I received. So I will be putting out the fillers to get your questions on YouTube and Instagram, as far as what do you want to know, whether it's you or somebody else, maybe a child or something like that you want to integrate into the tradition, and you have questions about how to do so effectively. So if you guys don't have any more questions, I'm definitely going to go ahead and close out now. As always, guys, I thank you all for showing up. I appreciate every single one of you. Ashe, please have a very blessed and beautiful day and beyond, guys.